Welcome to On Your Watch. I'm Christine Giordano, and this week's show is going to be to the theme of two very important topics: finding temporary work that could lead to something permanent, and staying motivated during your job search. Our first guest comes to us by video from Oklahoma City. His name is David Lewis. He is the Executive Director of Franchising for Express Employment Professionals. He's about to add 60,000 new jobs and is responsible for finding 350,000 jobs each year. This is a video from David Lewis.
Well, you know, Express is a broad-based full-service staffing company, so we're really reflective of the entire employment market. And where we see demand right now is in engineering and technical positions, but also accounting and finance is experiencing really high demand. But it's broad-based where we see the hiring. It's also on the industrial and entry-level side. Frankly, right now we've got more than 18,000 open positions in our 580 locations. So what we're seeing is hiring is starting to pick up across the board. Across all areas of the country, but it seems to be concentrated, the greatest demand being in the central part of the United States, followed by the east central side, which is sort of the Ohio to Michigan corridor. But the northeast side of the country is experiencing growth as well, up 3 to 5%, depending on which part of the northeast we're talking about.
What about the company growth, the forecast?
In terms of Express, again, as the largest privately held, the largest fully franchised staffing firm in the country, we're seeing that our growth is going to grow from about 335,000 employees last year. In 2012, we expect to employ nearly 400,000 employees. So our growth, again, broad-based. It's really a sign of what's happening in the employment market, which is, in our belief, what we're experiencing right now is a fundamental restructuring of the U.S. workforce. Right now, roughly 1.9% of the workforce is on a contract assignment. That's about 1 in 50 people. And our regulatory environment's leading more towards what we're experiencing in our operations overseas. The penetration rate among contract workers in South Africa, where we operate nearly 20 offices, for example, is 6.5%. And in England, in the UK, we see the penetration rate is pushing nearly 4%. And that's the type of environment that we're moving more towards, where companies are going to be bringing on a higher percentage of their workforce through a contract assignment, and frankly leaving them in that contract assignment in perpetuity as a way to control costs in a time of economic uncertainty.
So talk about the growth in the context of expansion, target markets.
So this demand for contract workers, really that's, again, broad-based, accounting sectors, engineering sectors, technical positions, as well as our administrative and industrial support roles, is really leading us to add new offices throughout the Northeast especially, but across the country. We expect that we'll add 56 new locations just to keep up with demand. That's a massive number, and in lines with the greatest expansions we've ever had in our 30-year history. So specifically, when we look locally, we've just added 2 new offices on Long Island just to keep up with the demand from our clients. And we're seeing a lot of that demand in this area, in Long Island, especially in the upper level. So that accounting and finance sectors in particular, but also engineering, IT, and the creative advertising marketing positions, interestingly enough, are still fairly robust for us. That's the primary reason that we've opened these 2 new offices here on Long Island.
Okay, now, so give us some tips for job seekers. What are tips for new graduates? Is it different for executives?
So even though we're seeing the demand for contract workers increasing, we're finding that some job seekers are reporting it's still fairly hard to find a position, even though we see that the number of open positions is increasing steadily month to month. And that means there's a lot of demand for the open positions. Job seekers are having to be more aggressive, more creative. And one of the things that we're seeing is that there's a mismatch between job seeker skills and open positions and what employers are seeking. So here's the tips that we're providing to job seekers that are proving effective right now. First and foremost is tailor your resume to the position that you're applying to. Far too often we see a job seeker who sends out the same resume to 10, 20, 30 different employers, when in reality you should have a different resume for each position that you apply to so that you can speak to the needs of that particular employer and that particular position. That's tip number one. We should also see more aggressive follow-up. In this day and age, companies still want to have a personal connection with their employees, and that means that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We want to see job seekers pick up the phone, engage through email, and sell themselves on why they are the best fit for that position. Tip number 3 is protect your Facebook and LinkedIn, because the first place employers are looking these days is social media. You know, we're often asked about executive level and how should an executive or someone at the V or C level position engage in their job search differently than someone maybe in a mid-level position. Interestingly enough, it's a lot of the same rules, but a little bit different spin. We'll find that many executives today fail to have, let's say, a LinkedIn profile. And an employer is still going to go look, and if they find a C-level or an upper-level executive who isn't engaged in today's communication channels, they may think that you're out of touch. So we would encourage an executive to do the same thing we would with someone maybe more entry-level, but that's to set up proactively that social media page. And also, it's about networking. The less and less positions today are going to be advertised at that level because, again, they're with more job seekers. So what you're going to look for is building relationships with target employers, even if they don't have an opening. And it's through that networking, also networking with connected recruiters like Express, that's going to lead to more job opportunities for the upper-level job seeker today.
So what advice would you give for a temporary assignment or contract position?
Contract assignments are going to be ever increasing. We're going to move from, in our prediction, an era where 1 out of every 50 employees is on a contract assignment to an era where 1 out of every 20 employees is on a contract assignment. That means more and more job seekers are going to find their career security through a contract assignment rather than through a traditional job placement. To that end, job seekers, when they find a contract assignment, should treat that as a working interview. You know, a contract assignment really, if you think about it, is just a extended interview period. It's your chance to impress, engage with the company, and show that you want to work there. And more and more, we're actually seeing some job seekers today, though, that are requesting stacked contract assignments. So rather than going in saying, I want to work contract with the hope of landing at that company, some are saying, you know, I'm going to view Express or another staffing firm as my employer, and they're going to find me 3, 6, 9 different assignments over the next several years. And that's a way that I grow my skills and increase my market value.
Okay, so talk about the challenges business owners are facing in recruiting and finding the right candidate.
So when we think from an employer's perspective, we get a lot of feedback from employers on, you know, what are their challenges, what are their pains, and this really hasn't changed over the last several years. The first thing that we hear that's a challenge is finding the right social skills. Employers today are telling us that they're willing to help bring along the technical skills associated with the position as long as the applicant has the basics. But what they're looking for, especially in the administrative and industrial support mid-level positions, is someone who's going to play by the corporate rules. It's as simple as showing up on time and being someone, frankly, that's easy to work with. And companies are telling us in this day and age where maybe folks are spending more time on Facebook than they are engaging with the person in the office next to them, is they're looking for someone that wants to be part of the company culture. And from an employer standpoint, how do you evaluate that at the early stage? That's the challenge for most employers today. But this last period of extended recession, and the one that I think most of us would argue we're slowly coming out of, it's a reminder that we shouldn't get static in our position. We've moved from an era where my father's generation stayed in their positions more than 20 years on average, and my generation stays less than 5 years on average. So if you're going to be relevant in today's workforce, you're constantly evolving your skills. And as an employer, if you're going to stay relevant in terms of a preferred place to work, you have to provide ongoing development and a sense of community to your workers. And I think that's, when we think about Express and our role, that's a big part of where our demand's coming from today with employers. It's not just help us find people, but help us create an environment where we're a magnet for talent, where folks want to come to work. And I think that's really the challenge, that's the riddle that all of us are working to solve in this day and age. Yeah. Well, and as a job seeker, we're finding that a lot of job seekers today are saying, even though I've got a job, what I want to work on is how do I develop my skills, enhance my contribution to the company so that I can move up. And well, frankly, that's the name of our job seeker blog, Moving On Up. And that's a place that we direct a lot of job seekers today to go for tips and tricks on how to accelerate your career and increase your market value. We also have our Refresh Leadership, which provides money-saving tips and employee engagement tips for employers. You can find all of that at expresspros.com. Simple web page will give you a lot of resources.